This is the Four Wheel Drive podcast driven by Shelter. We're at episode 4. That's the Southern River Band. Let It Ride, bringing us in again. You'll find us at the Four Wheel Drive podcast on Instagram. All our episodes will be on the BackChat YouTube. Ronnie, episode 4, mate. Oh, it's a bloody ripper. That is a bloody ripper. Mate, we're at episode 4. We're looking today at modifications. I probably don't need to say much else today. I could probably just let you go for the 45 minutes coming up here, but I'm going to keep you on a little bit of a schedule, mate.
Mate, your Ranger's pretty modified too, mate.
Oh, I wouldn't say. I don't think I'm getting a gig on your channel just yet. A little bit to go, but mate, let's jump right into it. You've done plenty of four-wheel drives in your time. How many up to?
Ooh, okay, so the first four-wheel drive I didn't do too much to. The second one I did a lot to.
Yep.
That was a Hilux, and then the 79, and then another Hilux, and then a Troopy. So I've learned a lot along the way. Costly mistakes, though.
I can relate with costly mistakes. What's one thing you've done to every one of them?
Look, tyres, I mean, it's probably the most boring thing to say, that tyres and lift.
We speak a lot about tyres on here.
Yeah, tyres and lift, tyres and lift. You know, it's just like the staple diet of a four-wheel drive, really, isn't it? Look, tyres is probably the main thing, but I would actually say that a lift is something that not everyone needs. So I'm driving around a Troopy still with no lift on it, although I do want one.
Yep.
But I've been going around fine, you know. I mean, modifying a four-wheel drive can be a bit of a rabbit hole. It's a bit of a danger. And like you said yourself as well, you've made a few of the mistakes. You've gone, you think you need this, you put it on your car, turns out later that's, hey, I didn't really need that, or I prefer this, or you know what, I don't want to be in a rooftop tent anymore, I want to tow a camper trailer. So it's a rabbit hole.
First time around as well was quite tough. I didn't have a lot to learn from my first time kitting out my car, which I'm still in and have made many modifications, but they're kind of the same mods, but different types or different brands, different variants, or whatever it is. So that was a trick as well, which I suppose is where stuff on your channel and what we're trying to get across here to people is don't make the mistakes that we probably have made, and I'm sure
learn from others.
Yeah, you don't up and say you've made plenty yourself, but I want to touch on your modified.
Oh, the modified series
that you've got on your own channels. Yep. What's something that's, I know you've spoken about the common ones that you've done to your vehicle just there, but what's something that comes across those that stands out that's normally a staple for them? Yeah,
so look, I used to ask the question at the end of all these modified series, what is your top 3 mods that you'll do first? Or what's your top 3 mods? They always say tyres, lift, and bull bar.
Yep. So...
but really, if they thought about it a bit more, what they actually use on the car is vastly different than those top 3 things. It could be a certain type of awning because it actually gives them shade because they hang around more, or the rooftop tent because they don't like sleeping on the ground, or a rooftop tent because it brings the missus out camping because she doesn't want to sleep on the ground, or vice versa. You know?
I can't go near there. I got rid of my rooftop tent. Now Laura, my partner, doesn't want to come camping all of a sudden. Does not want to be on the ground.
Yeah, well, there you go. You know, it's a perfect example. But look, the modified series is probably, in a way, it's a bad example, but it's also a good example. It's a good example in a way that you can see all the different mods on a vehicle. So I look for cars that have absolutely everything on it. And that's a bad example. You don't need all the stuff on it, because if you do too many mods, you're actually going to make the vehicle less capable because it's too heavy now. You put bigger tyres on, so now you're paying more in fuel. It's not rotating enough. It behaves differently off-road, worse off-road in some cases. In many cases, actually, if you put too big tyres on a vehicle. So it's like, say for instance, with that, your gearing on your vehicle is designed with the tyres it has on it. So some vehicles are unique to others. Like the 70 series Landcruiser, it has a very slow first gear, low crawl speed downhill. So it can tolerate going up to a 35-inch size and tyre, and that's a huge tyre in Australian terms.
Yep.
But say like a Hilux, if you go up to like a 33, it rolls too fast down the hill all of a sudden. So because the gearing is not designed for that.
Yeah, okay.
So there's a lot of little things. And then also like, for example, a Hilux... 6 gear. I put 33s on my second Hilux. I couldn't get 6 gear anymore.
Yeah, right.
It's just not there anymore.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Didn't know
up
that.
to fifth. That was it. The only time I
right.
got sixth gear was overtaking a road train because you got to go a little bit faster. I'm not going to talk about the $1.30 or
Not
whatever
how
it might
much
be.
faster.
Yeah, and then when you get off the accelerator, then it clicks into sixth gear, and you're like, oh, I got sixth gear, and then
Yeah, right.
once you start accelerating again, down to fifth, down to fourth.
Yep.
Yeah.
For my own knowledge, how do you select who comes on modified? Do you just like see them driving down the road and knock on their window and say, "What are you doing Saturday?"
Yeah, not quite to the stalker level, although I've been tempted to sometimes. A lot of time I'm passing, I'm like, oh, that would be a great vehicle.
Yeah,
I haven't got that vehicle in there yet. Usually it's someone will contact me or I'll put the feelers out.
Yeah, okay.
But I usually look for unique vehicles. But then a lot of the time, having a Hilux or a very common vehicle, a lot of people get something out of it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So
just keep the variety.
yeah,
for everyone.
yeah. Especially like a Hilux. Every man and their dog has a Hilux or a Ranger, and there's so many different ways to do it. Like the way you've done yours is different than a lot of other people do, and it's that's what's so cool about it. There's so many different ways to design your car.
Yep.
But there are some pitfalls as well, you know.
Yep. So jumping away from the staples that we've sort of covered there, what's something that's come up through modified that you haven't done to your vehicle? It's a bit quirky, but through the series, you've seen something that you really like and you've actually adapted to your vehicles.
So I get to look at a lot of cars, and then I get to see the quality on the stuff. So it's like, and then like off camera, they'll say, oh, you know what, there's some things I don't really like about this and this. So that way I've gained a lot of knowledge of what's the problem with some things. For example, say for instance, like a cheap rooftop tent. I don't want to mention brands in case, I don't want to ditch any brands.
Yeah, we're not about that here.
There's many out there. But there's like a really cheap rooftop tent that someone had on a Amarok. And he said it's the best and the worst thing he's ever got for his car. And like, how can you say that? Well, it's the best because of the rooftop tent and it didn't cost much and he's up there, but it's the worst because he can feel every ripple underneath the mattress.
Yeah, okay.
So there's highs and lows through a lot of these things that people got to be careful with. And a lot of it you don't know until you actually just go and buy it and try it yourself, like we have done. Costly mistake. Yep. But that's where that modified series is, to show people what the owner thinks of these items.
Yeah. I suppose it's nice to hear, because a lot of the people on the modified series don't have a biased opinion towards. There's no, a lot aren't sponsored by certain companies or anything like that. So
there are a few, but
you're mostly getting a pretty honest opinion on the products that they've, I suppose, bought. But I really like seeing the interior setups on a lot of cars and the way that they've organised the back of their wagon or
that's
draw
my favourite
systems
part
in a ute. I think there's so much out there for that. And the rabbit hole that you speak about, you can certainly go down there with that. But there's really great, like, smaller companies doing some really nice crafty work.
Yeah, there are like really like sort of tailored and custom to certain things. And a lot of these smaller companies, they're like enthusiasts themselves, just like us.
Yeah.
So
it's a passion for them to set it up for you.
Yeah. And essentially living the dream because their business is probably funding what they're doing and they get to go camping and tax deduct it.
Yeah, true.
It's pretty beneficial sometimes.
Yeah. Well, my mate's got a troopy and he spent a lot of money on kitting the back of his out, but it's just the perfect setup. It's an old, like, this thing's as old as he is.
Yeah.
And it sat in his backyard for 20 years after his old man stopped using it, and he sort of restored it. And the setup that he's got in this thing is just, it makes it feel brand new because of the quality that's gone into the final touches of it. And like you say, enthusiasts who take a lot of pride in setting a car up for their clients. So, and
they'll look after it as well,
Yeah,
because if they're really happy with that, they'll look after it too.
Yeah. So I love that part of it, and I actually, you know what I like as well? I like when you go inside the cabin and they've got that much junk in there. They've got plasma screens and
more stuff than a bloody jumbo jet.
Yeah, mate, I absolutely love that. That is, that's one of my favourite things to see when you get in an old bucket of a 79 and you see six screens and buttons everywhere, and I love that part.
Some of it's insane, the amount of stuff they put in. You're like, how do you actually focus on the road? How can you see out the windscreen?
Yeah, well, the kids would be happy.
Yeah, that's it. But it was one vehicle in particular, I think it was episode 26, these two German backpackers reached out to me and they wanted to be on the show.
They've asked for their way onto the channel.
Yeah, it asked for their way on the channel. This is early days.
So you can do that too to the listeners.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, cool. I had some really grainy photos. So I was just had a quick look. Yeah, cool. Let's link up and just do it on Friday. Headed out there. When I saw the car, I was like, what have I actually done? This thing is a bucket of shit. This thing looks so bad. But the more we looked into it, the more it opened my eyes to the DIY, and then like getting by with like a shoestring budget. I mean, these guys are German backpackers. No money to their name. Like, they're going fruit picking and traveling around Australia.
Yep.
So my hat goes off to them for that. And what they've done with this car, it looked like a Mad Max met DIY.
Yeah, right.
So they will work on some construction sites and they'll empty the bins out, get like a bit of ply, a bit of metal, make up their own stuff. It was an incredible build, really. Yep. And it was so functional. So once they went through it all and showed me, I was like, wow, this is actually really cool. So you can really modify a vehicle with like no money at all. Yep. To a point. And then you get the other guys who have like do a 6-wheel, they extend it, put an extra axle on it and $400,000 car versus the backpackers with like a car they bought on Gumtree for a couple of grand and just threw some things on it.
Probably very practical too for what they're after. I mean, you drive up the coast here in WA, if you make it all the way to Broome, the amount of like sort of older Subaru Foresters or those things you see, rooftop tent, jerry cans on the roof, full to the brim in the boot, but they're getting by having a ball.
Yeah, that's it.
And you see that and you think you're looking at your car and what you spent on that, and they're getting to the exact same places that you're getting to and enjoying themselves just as much. So it's you got to be careful.
You definitely got to be careful.
Speaking of anything that you do differently, now everyone would have something that they do differently, but I suppose the process. What would be your process now if you could give any advice?
Okay, so the process for building a car, and like I'm just going to say straight out, this is what I think people need to do. They get their vehicle, they use it as is, and then they find the weaknesses in it. But then they may have found a weakness, doesn't mean you need to upgrade it. Maybe you can drive different, maybe you can compromise on certain ways of doing things like you're camping or whatever. But it's sort of like learn to live with what you have, and the bits that will add a lot more comfort or ability to the vehicle, focus on that and then go from there.
Yep.
The worst thing you can do is hand your keys over to an accessory store and say, I want the touring package, because all the stuff you get on your car you may not even want or need. And everyone's out there to make $1, so they're going to sell you the dream. So before you get sold the dream, be very careful, do a lot of research, use a podcast like the Full Drive podcast,
absolutely.
Get some good advice there, and look up on YouTube, look for people's reviews and all the different items, see how people camp. The other danger is when you go out camping with other people and they have like the Taj Mahal stuff, you're like, wow, I want that, and I want this and I want that, and then once you put it on your car, you realise that half the stuff you didn't actually need or want.
Yep, it's one thing I've gone through 1,000 times. The old saying, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
When you could be doing just fine with what you've got, but you see something up the road that's bigger and better and you want that. But
grass is greener on the other side.
Yeah, that's it. Still got to be mowed. So everyone's saying the 79. What's one thing what do you want to do next to the 79? Something that looks like it can't have anything else done to it. So where's the next model? Or is there something you can take off? Is it?
It's funny you should say that. What could I take off? I feel like I've taken everything off that I wanted to take off it.
Yeah.
So I'm in a unique position where I have a Troopy that's like a home on wheels. I can live out of that Troopy. But the 79, I can't essentially live out of it. I can, but it's more like a roughy sort of live.
Yep.
Except for I can tow with it. So it's set up for throw the swags in the back, one fridge, and that's it. Or I can go towing. So I can leave the tray empty or load it up with firewood, kids' bikes, whatever.
Yep.
Load up a camper trailer, even a caravan if I wanted to. So that's how I want to keep that vehicle. But with the Troopy, it's because I have the unique position of having two different cars. If I didn't have that unique position, I'll probably still be dilly-dallying around changing this, changing that. So it started as a ute trayback, then I went to a canopy, then I went to a half box, to two half boxes, to two fridges, to one fridge, back to a tray, and now it's going to stay as is, hopefully.
Yeah, right.
Fingers crossed.
That's good. All that trial and error to be to your final product. It's
Mate, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I I doubt you though. I don't think it'll stop there. Um,
Yeah.
Talking about the essential mods, the basics that we covered: suspension, bull bar, tyres. Most people that are going to be getting into four-wheel drive are probably looking into those things, or at least know about them.
Yeah.
We're going to be touching on more remote travel in coming episodes, but just as a little precursor, what are some more essential mods for, say, your more remote trips? Like, are we looking at diesel filters? Rear bars. Like, where are we? Where are sort of you seeing the three major differences there?
So for remote travel, you probably want to be looking at fuel tanks, extended fuel range. That eliminates possibly the need for a rear bar, because then you don't need to put jerrys on the back of and that sort of eliminates the extra weight you're going to put on it. A lot of people put a rear bar to have the 2 spare tyres, which makes sense, but you can also put a carcass on the roof, watch a YouTube video how to change a tyre, and then you should be okay.
Yep.
But always definitely carry at least a carcass and a full spare when you go proper remote travel. Yeah, definitely fuel. And then it's like, speaking about fuel, diesel in particular, diesel filter, a secondary diesel filter.
Is that how it works? Dust and is that trapping that, or just trapping?
It's more like the servo might be a bit dodgy. Like there might be a
fuel
hole in the tank on the bottom, because some of these places, they don't get maintained, or the fuel's been sitting there for ages. Or you fill up somewhere and you got no choice because you see the tanker's there emptying the fuel into filling it up. When that happens, my advice is don't fill up there that day, because it's stirring up all the shit on the bottom, all the algae and all the stuff that's sitting on the bottom.
It's a great little tip.
Yeah, so don't fill up. If a petrol tank is there filling up the petrol station, go somewhere else.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
But you don't have a choice out there.
Yeah, true.
The next fuel stop might be 400 Ks, and you're like, oh, no.
No other option.
Fuel filter.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, righto. Well, that's there. Good to know. We will go. We'll get right into that.
Yeah, we get right into that. And then also, like, I guess the most... the biggest weak point on the vehicle as well. So say, for instance, I'll give an example, the 70 series Toyota, the alternator is pretty bad.
Yep.
So it's the first thing that goes on the mine sites and all that as well, because just all the mud and stuff, it hangs so low. It's like you got the differential, then you got the alternator sitting right there going, hello, bring on the dirt, right?
Yep.
It does not like it. It'll start failing, and I've dealt with that many times before. But you can get like upgrades, brushless, water cool sealed ones. They're very expensive. However, you won't have to change it ever again.
Yep.
And more importantly, you're not underneath your car trying to fix it.
Yeah, not
in
the
the middle of
place you
nowhere.
want to be doing that.
Yeah, that's it.
I want to go to as well. It's pretty broad, and I'm going to backtrack a little bit here. But the best places to get your mods done. Now, I've said do your research.
Yeah.
As a broad statement.
It's a very broad statement.
Yeah.
And it's easy to sit here in a chair and say that. But I think to dive more into that, I would say word of mouth.
Yep.
Word of mouth is a good one, because you're going to get the honest feedback from your mate. Oh, these guys were terrible, or these guys were actually really good. They showed me problems I had in other areas of the car that wasn't even part of what they were doing. Because you can get some real shoddy work out there. I had a mate, he got a fuel tank put on his car, and because the exhaust he had was custom, it didn't fit to the fuel tank. Instead of ringing him saying, mate, we need to do something about this, they just cut the exhaust in the middle, and then he picked up the car and he was like, what's that noise?
Yeah, right.
So there are some horror stories.
Yeah.
But then there are some good things as well. So for example, say a manufacturer that makes this particular suspension, if they also fit it, they'll be the guys to go to, because they make it, they fit it, they know everything about it.
One-stop shop.
Yeah. You're not always going to get that. So word of mouth again, or someone has a really high respect and reputable reputation.
Yep.
Even that sometimes can be a bit dicey as well.
Yep.
Yeah,
so I think do your research, probably talk to someone that you trust.
Yeah.
Has done some work to their car before. I mean, I've chopped and changed between different shops, and not through poor work or bad jobs, but obviously some places offer different products. You find something else online that you like, you need to go somewhere else. And you might find a fitter that you really like, but they just don't offer what you're after at that certain time.
Yeah.
And I think I'm starting to go down the smaller company side as well, like just having that relationship with...
So you could talk to the person working in the car.
Yeah, and they get to know your vehicle and what you're after. And not that I'm doing anything hardcore, but Auto Elect, for example,
that's the
seen the last Auto Elect for a few times now. He's done a great job.
Yeah.
Understands what I'm after, what I need. Kept it really simple. I can fiddle around with it if I need, because he's happy to talk you through it, and you end up forming a bit of a relationship with them as well, which really helps when you're putting a fair bit of money over the counter.
Definitely. And then like if they understand your needs as well, and a lot of the mods, like say for instance an Auto Sparky, they work on all kinds of cars, right?
Yep.
Not necessarily full drive. So finding one that understands the full driving aspect as well, because then you need like better seal connectors, and you can't just put like crimps and those little patching crimps.
Yeah.
Because they will just rust over time. And then you're going to have volt drops. Your headlights or high beams aren't going to work, and things like that.
Yeah,
so
practicality's huge as well when you get to camp like you do in the dark, and you want to find the light switch. You need that to be nice and easy to get to. One thing, I don't know, a warning, I would say, to everyone listening and viewing: what you put on your car as mods, you don't get your money back on in the long run.
No. During COVID, yes, but not anymore.
Well, true. You were getting probably double, but I think we needed to touch on that, because I've done 150,000 Ks in my Ranger now, and obviously through the COVID tax, still would have got quite a good price between 2020, 2021 there.
Yep.
Probably done a few too many on it now, but it's got all the mods on it, and I've spent, I don't know.
You're invested into it.
I've invested a lot. But there's no way that I'm getting money back on my bull bar, my winch, my lights, roof racks, draw system. They diminish quicker than the actual car itself. Very,
very good point. And I think a lot of people don't realise that. You're not adding value to your car, when you are to yourself. And I guess if you had your car and another Ranger for sale, same amount of Ks, they'll be like, and they're full driving, they'll be like going. It just makes your car easy to sell.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you got all the stuff already. And you can get a little bit more, but it's not that much more.
I mean, if you get a 79 off the shelf now and throw mods on it, that your price is going through the roof at the moment. You're making your money there if you've got the time to wait for one to come to you. But there's no way once it's done, 50, 100, 150 plus, you're losing out on your mod. So when you're changing around, like I have, and I'm sure you have, you're never getting that money back.
No, you're not. And so the resale is one thing, but then there's also insurance. So just because you put all this stuff in your car doesn't mean your car is now insured for the value of what you put on it.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
And you got the labour as well. It's not going to cover the labour. That said, however, there are some insurance companies you can get agreed values. Major one, which I won't mention because I'm not qualified to give insurance advice, but there's a major one. Their limit is 14,000 on top of the car.
Right.
So say if you spend 50 grand in the car, well, the 50 grand is covered on the car, but only up to a value of 14. So if you smash the back of your car, hopefully you've only smashed about 14 grand's worth of mods on the back, and then your value of your car as well.
Yep.
Other than that, there are other insurance companies that give you agreed value, but then you're paying for it too.
Yeah. Okay.
But speaking of insurance, if there are some things you got to be careful of, like if you remove a DPF, some insurance companies won't insure you. It's a very broad one, that one though. And the other thing, a lot of people worry about, okay, they've got illegal mods or not legal mods, so I prefer saying grey area mods. You're generally still covered, but you've got to be careful. But if they can prove that, say, your bigger tyres was the cause of that accident, then they won't cover you.
Right.
So, for example, there's one insurance company, they will insure you if you have a 3-inch lift and 37s or something stupid. But if you roll the car, they won't insure you because you had that on the car, which made it unstable from vehicle manufacturer specification.
Yeah, okay.
Of course, if you got it approved with an engineering certificate and you've done gone through all the hoops and gone through DOT and pit inspection and you got it approved, which I'm going through at the moment with a 79, then you have the paperwork, but you gotta communicate that to the insurance company so they understand what you've done to the car, because they might go, oh, well, that's all good and well, but we don't want to insure you.
Yeah, okay.
So you got to get that in writing. Yes, we've received the paperwork. Yes, you are insured.
Yeah, right. So I suppose if you're really kitting your four-wheel drive out, that's probably that's the lengths that you've got to go to, isn't it?
Definitely.
To make sure you're actually legal on the road.
Yeah, to just be safe everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess I probably should point out some mods to be very, very careful with. Bull bars. If you get a bull bar that's not approved and you have an accident, well, you could get done for neglect if your passenger gets seriously injured or dies.
Wow, I didn't know that.
changing seats, putting custom rock sliders on the side of your car when you've got curtain airbags, that can also affect that. So you've got to be very careful. A lot of research and stuff and engineering and stuff goes into these vehicles from stock. They've been crash tested, all that. Now, some companies can stretch cars, like, for example, a mate of mine who owns On Track Fabrication, he stretches a 200 series and puts a tray on the back, so he chops them.
Yep.
And he had to go through so many hoops to get it approved that the curtain airbag's still going to go off. So they had to do like a test.
Right.
Not like a whole smash test, but they did a test. And then a couple of weeks later, he stretched a client's car. He got T-boned and all the airbags went off. So then he called up Department of Transport and said, yeah, there you go. There's your second proof, mate.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So it's got to be legit for that kind of stuff, because if you're playing around with seats, stuff that impacts airbags, it's a dicey.
Yeah. If that's your flavour, then the advice is to just really do your research on making sure you've got everything you need.
Yeah. And then there's GVMs, There's also GVMs.
Yeah. So which I watch a lot of stuff. And it seems to come up quite a lot, which is something when I started out I didn't know. I'm not towing or anything like that, but even if you're adding...
But even if you're not towing.
Yeah, if you're adding bits and pieces over time to your car and you're just creeping over that number, it's gotta watch out. This has sounded a bit doom and gloom. My word of advice is go as hard as you can at kitting out your car, because it's good fun.
Oh, yeah, it's good fun. It's good fun. But just be aware of a couple of things. I think
there's a couple of things out there.
Yeah. So with suspension, if you're going to spend money on a suspension and it is a legal height kit, well, you can get a GVM kit and you might as well just get it done, because then your car can carry that extra weight.
Yep.
And yes, you're paying an extra $600 for an engineer to certify it and it goes over to pits and all that. But your vehicle can now carry more weight and all the extra mods you put on it. Because some vehicles from factory, especially the newer ones, as soon as you put a bull bar on it, you can't even tow a caravan. Yeah, right. Because you've gone over that weight. You put your missus' handbag on the front because she carries 30 kilos on the shoulder sometimes. It's overweight, So you'll be really careful with it, because GVM, gross vehicle mass, and then you've got GCM, gross combined mass. That's your towing thing. This is where things can really, really complex. And I think we'll save that for an episode on itself.
Yep.
Because gross vehicle mass and gross combined mass is a massive episode. And I think we should get an expert in to talk to us about that too.
I've got no idea about that, so I'm happy to sit out that one and get the expert in this chair.
It's a big one though,
Yeah. No, that's really great. I think another word of advice, and please don't take my advice because I've got no idea, but is, like you say, if you're going in to do suspension or anything, try and do it once, do it right, and get everything that's involved. There's nothing worse than having to go back every 3 weeks because there's a little bit more
it's not quite right or something.
Yeah, it's just you're without your car for so many days. It just gets annoying. Do it once, do it right.
Yeah, and suspension is so finicky too.
Yeah, I'm on my second.
Yeah, you're on your second one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have trouble with your upper control arms, because you got suspension kit, but then like for a car like yours or a Hilux, you got the upper control arms. Yep. Sometimes you got to worry about too. Yeah. So my first set of suspension upper control arms weren't changed over. My second set, they've been updated. So I'm riding really well. My leaf springs had sunk to a frown. Which happens over time.
Yeah, which happens over time. But I've got them smiling again. So man, that's stuff that I can't go into too much detail about. I don't know a lot about it, but I've got smiling leaf springs, so I'm happy.
Well, that's
But upper control arms have been changed over on this last one. It doesn't ride any different, especially on road. I don't notice a lot, but certainly off road, I'm much happier.
Yeah. Yep. So you a bit more stretch.
Yeah, just a little bit. And I mean,
you're never going to get that much stretch out of all these cars. But unless you go stupid.
Modern day utes are sort of and I mean, I've thought about that too, but that's just not what I'm in it for. So I've got a really good combo at the moment, I feel, which is nice. So yeah.
I think just before we finish up on suspension, one other thing. So say if you're looking at suspension, but you want to go around Australia, a lot of dirt roads. Dirt roads equals corrugations. And you have two different types of shocks. You've got monotube and you got remote reservoir. The difference is a monotube is just your standard shock that you get, run of the mill.
Yep.
That'll overheat very easily compared to a remote res.
So what will overheating cause? What's that going to mean for you?
The oils It's like your transmission, your oils and fluids, they need to stay within this certain heat temperature, because otherwise it just loses its ability to do what it's supposed to do.
Okay.
So in a shock, you get shock fade. So if you have a monotube shock where it's just a shock and you don't have that canister of a remote res where it can go and cool down, that's the whole point of that. That shock will only last 80,000 Ks if you're lucky, if you do a lot of dirt roads. If you don't do a lot of dirt roads, that's fine.
Should be fine, yeah.
Doesn't matter. But a remote res, a lot of them are serviceable. Look, monotubes are serviceable too, but most of the time, the amount of cost to service it, you just replace it.
Yep.
But with a remote res, they will last 150,000 Ks in my experience, even longer.
Yep.
And they can just handle that on the corrugations, you know.
Yeah, which I think I've gone to remote reservoir, I think, on mine.
And you'll probably notice that if you
pay a bit extra, but
you pay a bit extra. Yeah. It's also the right quality, because you can kind of feel your car behaves a bit different when it gets shock fade.
Yep.
So if you only have monotube shocks and you can't afford to get a remote res and you're going 400 Ks of corrugation, stop every now and then, let it cool down, rock the car a little bit, hop back in, take off again.
Yeah, right. There you go. Yeah. So if you pull up on the side of the road and you're doing that, just there sitting pushing your car, you're cooling down the shocks.
Cooling down the shocks.
Beautiful.
Stretching the legs.
Yeah, so how many laps of the car do you do usually?
Depends how much of a mad rush I'm in. Yeah, I'll drive an hour, get out, do a couple of laps, hop in, go again. Right. Sometimes I resort to snapping knees and
right. I do the car phrases. If I'm on cruise control I'll and it's safe to do so. Yeah. I don't need my foot near the brake.
Cruise control. I don't have that.
There you go. Sorry, mate. Sorry to rub it in. But I'll get the car phrases going. I'll just get a bit of blood flow.
Yeah,
That's my little one there. This is Ronny Dahl. I'm Liam Duggan, the Four-Wheel Drive podcast driven by Shelter.
Ooh.
There it is.
The fire.
What a beautiful sound.
Warming up.
You know what that means? It's around the fire pit, where we fire a few questions at ourselves. Well, we don't fire them at ourselves. Jaden, behind the desk over there, he's going to fire them at us. Actually, I'm not even going to really intro it, mate. This is just around the fire pit. Jaden, get us.
I have a question for us before we get into it.
Oh, questions for us,
yeah. Do we need a shelter?
Oh, right hell, yeah.
We'll do the questions. We'll have a shelter then, eh?
Absolutely, yeah. Give us one question just to get moving, and then Ronny, you bloody addicted to those shelters at the moment. Righto, Jaden, what do you got? I'm going to shut the laptop, mate.
All right, shut us off. First question. How do you set up a modern dual cab for remote long-range touring while staying within GVM?
Within GVM, okay. So there's two ways we can talk about this. There's one where you don't add too much weight and you stay within your normal GVM, which is possible in a couple of different ways. One way, say it's just you and your missus traveling, because on a really long remote trip, like a desert crossing, hey, you might have the kids with you, but if you don't, you could pull the back seats out, register your car if you don't have kids, you could register it as a two-seater, and that'll give you extra GVM. Or you could get a GVM upgrade, or you could just stay as light as possible. But for a really remote trip, it is almost impossible to stay light especially if you've got mods on your car, because you need to carry the extra fuel, supplies for perhaps a week or two, maybe 3 weeks. So GVM upgrade is the best answer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just go and get the GVM upgrade. Well, if you're not going to do it, you want to keep it. What's the GVM upgrade sort of costing you?
Well,
I don't know.
It's kind of like it's just like getting a legal size suspension. When I say legal size suspension, you go 50 mil suspension. So
there's no extra cost to get a GVM upgrade on top of the suspension. That getting that suspension upgrade may just put you inside.
There is, yeah, because you can get a GVM upgrade, but it's not certified.
Right. Okay.
Right. So regardless, certified or not, you should still get a GVM upgrade.
Right.
Because you need to carry the extra weight, so the car behaves the way it should. But for the extra $600, you can get the engineer to sign off. But you just got to make sure you ask the accessory store that. Say, for instance, you go to ARB, TJM, opposite lock, you get their kit. Then you have to actually say to them, I want it engineered and certified.
Yep.
In that case, they'll charge you an extra, roughly about $600 thereabouts, and then they'll actually take it over to pits for you. But if you don't ask for that, you got to take it over to pits yourself. And then most people don't, because it's a bit of a process, like paperwork and stuff. It's easier for the shop to do it.
Yep. I'm going to say, assuming you've got a better set of tyres on your car, if you're remote touring, I'm assuming you've already looked into that. If you're not looking to upgrade the GVM, you need more fuel, you need protection at the front of your car, you need lights in case you're night driving.
Yeah.
I think they're the three things that you're starting with.
You'll have to go minimal on the mods, yeah.
Yeah.
And look, if you got a modern day dual cab, heaps of tray space for fuel.
Yes, and just work from your big ticket items.
Yeah.
Down to your, I suppose,
Yeah, that's
what
it.
would be nice, but you don't necessarily need.
Keep it as light as possible.
Yep.
Yeah. Bit hard when you want to bring shelters along, though, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's it. There's 6 slabs of those.
Yeah.
Forgot to say that was from Chris McCraud.
On your Chris?
Yeah,
Thanks,
just
Chris.
wanted to give him.
Yeah, let him know.
Yeah, let him know
We're
it's
answering
his question. Yeah, we've got him. This one's from Andy G. Throttle controller, new car warranties. Is it worth it?
I don't think a throttle controller is going to void your new car warranty, but then I don't know 100% sure. A throttle controller, all that does is manipulate the throttle response. It doesn't change any parameters on the engine. It just changes the parameters on your pedal.
Yep.
Yeah. So all you're really doing is you're adjusting the pedal. So before you had to go all the way to the bottom to get the go, but now you might just go halfway and you get the go.
Just reducing the lag. A tune's different though, isn't it?
A tune's different because now you are manipulating the parameters of the factory tune, of the ECU, and you're telling it to do this and this. Look, some throttle controllers, I mean, they're only like $100, I think, generally. So, in that sense, I don't think they're manipulating anything apart from the pedal itself.
Yep, right.
But
which is just, it's plug and play, isn't it?
It's
really?
plug and play. Yeah. You
So
just unplug the current pedal plug and you plug the other one in.
Yeah, right.
It's like a piggyback kind of thing.
Yeah, so pretty safe with the throttle controller. But if you're going to tune your vehicle,
yeah, and
where you-
and if you're tuning your vehicle, don't use a throttle controller. I've got a mate who tuned his car, but then still has a throttle controller, and then wonders why it drives like shit.
Right.
But it's like,
I've
mate,
thought about doing that, so I'm glad you said.
don't do it because the guy who tuned your car, he's just made it
He's done that
exactly
for you.
how it should be.
Yep.
And then now you're putting this in, and all of a sudden it's just like a rocket.
Yeah,
You're
righto.
like,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Yeah, okay, that's good. Yeah, I've never actually asked anyone about that, so it's good to know.
Because I had someone put one in mine. I got an exhaust installed on the car, and the company cheekily said to the accessory store, "Oh, it's Ronny Dahl. Just put a throttle control in his car as well," without asking me.
Oh, right.
So I came
Just trying
back.
to be nice.
Yeah, I came back from Europe on a holiday. Got the car, and I was like, "Wow, am I that shit at driving my car?" And it took me ages to
Lost
realise they put a bloody throttle controller in.
Yeah, right. There
I
you
wasn't
go.
happy. I went back in and slapped it on the desk going, "Who authorised this?"
Very good. That's good intel.
Next one from Rowan_Enac. What do you prefer for overlanding, parabolic or leaf springs?
You're going to be the man.
Yeah. Have you tried parabolics?
No.
Okay. So, the difference between parabolics and normal leaf spring. Normal leaf spring, they're a bit stiffer. They're quite big as well. So, parabolics will allow you to have less, like a footprint, which only really benefits like a car that has a leaf undersprung. I think your car's got a leaf on top of the axle, so it's not going to make too much difference in clearance-wise.
Yes.
However, parabolics can allow a bit more flex and a bit more stretch. They are noisier. What's my preference? Either. Horses for courses.
Was it for overlanding?
For overlanding, yeah. It depends. Like you can get some really good parabolics now from like Terrain Tamer. They've designed some that are like 700 kilo, 500 kilo, and 300 kilo or something like that. Don't quote me on numbers, but I've had them before. Like not those specific ones, but parabolics, normal leaf spring. It's a bit of a muchness of a muchness.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's hard to say one's better than the other. They both have their place. Parabolics does hang down a little bit sometimes when they flex. So you if you're like rock hopping, maybe not the best thing. But then a leaf sprung vehicle is not good for rock hopping anyway.
Yeah, you get a bit more travel out of the parabolics.
Yeah, you get a bit more travel, but then also that it brings the leaves down. It exposes them a little bit.
Oh, okay, right.
So in a certain situation, they can, jar into a rock or something.
Yeah, righto.
Yeah.
Yep.
Last one from I.Peridisti. What are the most puncture durable mud tyres?
Whoa, any tyre on the market.
That thing there.
Well, look, any tyre on the market is not puncture resistant. So unless you get bulletproof tyres, Kevlar sleeved or whatever, every tyre on the market will puncture. Mud tyres are probably less prone to puncture because they got these. This is the mud tyre though. This is a very aggressive competition tyre. But the more side bodies you have, the less likely your tyre is going to puncture. So look, just go for well-known brands. That's generally the safest way to go. Look, I use Maxxis, but also work with Maxxis, so take it with a grain of salt. But I've tried many different tyres, and once I started using the Maxxis, I've stuck with them for 4 years, and I didn't work with them until about 2 years ago. So that to me is my preference of tyre.
Yeah.
Have I punctured some? Yes, I have. But you're going to puncture any tyre in some situations.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
lower your tyre pressures, and then there's less chance.
I've just been on the what am I on the Nido?
The trail grappler?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep, trail grapplers.
Yep, I had them before. They're pretty good.
Yeah, I've been pretty happy. That's my second set of Nido tyres, and I've been pretty happy. But I'm
that's probably my second favourite tyres.
Yeah, righto. Yeah. Well, wasn't too far off then, was I? Is that all you got for us, Jaden? That's around the fire pit this week?
Oh, that's it. That's
nice and warm. Now you can crack a shelter now, mate. That's episode 4, done and dusted, mate. What was it? Mods. Pretty good episode. Pretty broad. We'll touch
the rabbit hole of mods.
Yeah, we'll go deeper into some of the specifics because we're going to be here a while, mate.
Yeah, we are. I'm expecting some questions about GVM and GCM.
Yep.
And we haven't covered anything about lights, but I think we could do that in a entirely different.
We all love
episode.
lights.
Yeah. Especially camping in the dark.
Yeah, well, you are the best at that. We are the Four Drive podcast driven by Shelter. That was episode 4 for you folks. We love the Southern River Band. Let it ride. They'll see us out again. The Four Drive podcast on Instagram. Hit us up. And all our episodes are on the BackChat YouTube channel. See you next time, folks.
Adios.